Welcome back to the Deliberate Exchange. If this is your first time listening, hi, my name's Chelsea. And if you have listened to the other episodes before this, thank you so much for coming back. So what I want to talk about today is something that I've been kind of like in it for the last couple weeks. It doesn't sound like massive dramatic story. It's definitely like on the quieter side, and it's the kind that happens behind closed doors inside your body where nobody else can see it. Nobody knows you're holding it, but you can certainly feel it. So a little bit of context for background. Last night there was an event that one of those like I should have gone to, but I didn't. I just didn't have it in me to go and smile and be social and be on. My body was saying no, and so I listened to it. And earlier that night I had facilitated breathwork, and that kind of space holding also takes a lot of energy. And on top of like everything else that I do, I was tired. But there was also, truthfully, like a layer underneath the surface that was definitely heavier. And it was one of those things like I didn't necessarily want to sit with yet, because when I got quiet, what I actually felt was really depleted, and I felt overextended, like I was quietly carrying something really, really heavy for too long, trying to hold it all together without asking for help. And that kind of internal pressure always finds a way to leak out. Now, I feel pressure and feel the urge to kind of keep everything to myself because of conditioning and like the appeal of being the strong one. I also think that there's something about what I do for a living, being a coach who helps people. I don't want to be in a position where it seems like I'm weak or like I haven't figured it out. And the truth is, like, that's such nonsense, because I am perpetually figuring things out. And that is what makes me so dynamic as somebody who guides and facilitates growth, is because I'm willing to go first and do this kind of work. So this pressure that I was feeling was starting to show up as reactivity. I was shorter with my partner. I was shorter with my dog. I was more emotional over really small things. It's that like you're being reactive, but you just can't stop it. It's like a train wreck that you can't get away from. And that's when I knew that there was something deeper asking to be seen, because like I couldn't explain the reactions. It wasn't just that I was, stacking stress like I had talked about a couple of weeks ago. Like it was definitely something deeper. And so that moment I had a choice. Like when I got home from facilitating breathwork, my first impulse was very familiar: distract. Turn on Netflix, zone out, watch episode after episode of Mindhunter. That kind of numbing out is sneaky because it looks harmless and even comforting. Like I'm just like trying to take a load off. I'm just trying to like relax. But if I was too drained to go to an event because of how I was feeling, then turning away from myself again at home is only going to dig the hole deeper. And that was my first moment of choice. And that is really what self-leadership is. It's not always in the big, bold moves that we post about online. It's in these tiny, quiet moments where you decide not to abandon yourself, where you choose to go through something instead of skirting around it. So I started sitting with what was there. I set the mood. I sat on the couch. The lights were low. The music was playing. And I let myself feel. At first, it was like restlessness, like this crawling sensation under my skin that says, like, do something, fix it, move. Stillness feels unsafe. Even my breathing was shallow. My jaw was tight. Like I was bracing. And it took a few minutes even to be with that. I had to remind myself, like, you're safe to feel this. And slowly, With that guidance into safety, I started tracing back the feeling, asking gently, like, what's actually hurting right now? And when I slowed down enough to listen, what I found was actually surprising / not surprising. So I got to the root. The truth was I'd been feeling unseen in my relationship. My partner has been working hard on a couple of different things, pouring energy and time and effort into it. Now, even though I know logically that isn't about me, emotionally it landed as there's no energy left for me. And that hit something really old. It took me right back to being a little girl, waiting for my father to have time for me, watching him pour himself into his work and always feeling like I was just not quite worth the effort. I wasn't worth the time. And like, it sucks to say that out loud. Like, I don't know what else to say, but it just sucks. And that's the thing about inner work. These moments of activation aren't random. They are invitations. They show us where love still needs to reach. And so I started looking at the pattern. When I looked deeper, I realized this pattern shows up in so many parts of my life, and it ends up projecting onto my partner. I equate attention and effort with love. If somebody is pouring energy into me, I feel safe. If they're not, I start to contract and question my worth. And then I start managing, overfunctioning, doing more to earn it back. And that's the old survival strategy. If I prove I'm valuable, I will not be forgotten. But it's also a pattern that leads straight to burnout and resentment because it's rooted in a belief that love has to be earned. So when I saw my partner giving that kind of focused effort elsewhere, my system registered it as abandonment. And I will be clear, like, this is not my partner's issue. This is something in me that I'm now putting into our relationship. Because my body didn't know the difference between him working and putting effort into something and my father not being around. And that's why the reaction was so visceral. And that's what caused me to break open. And that realization came in waves. Like, there's a little bit of shock and a little bit of tears. And then there's like this soft ache that I didn't want to move away from, because underneath that story, underneath the anger and exhaustion, was grief. There was grief for all the times I'd made myself small to be chosen, and grief for the moments I'd convinced myself I didn't need much, or grief for how hard I'd worked to seem okay when I really just wanted somebody to see me. Remember, we all have a core need to be seen, heard, and understood. And the most powerful thing I did that night was stay with myself. I didn't fix it. I didn't analyze it. I breathed through the ache until it softened. And that's the part of self-leadership we don't talk about enough, the staying in it. And then comes the compassion and reparenting. When the tears slowed, what came next was compassion. But the order that the compassion came in really matters here. It was compassion for me first. Before I could understand my partner or my father, I had to hold that younger part of me and say, of course you felt that way. Of course it hurt. Of course you still need reassurance sometimes. You're not superhuman. You still feel, and regardless of the work that you do, there are still some things that run deep. And that is reparenting. I'm not making it mean more than I need to, and I'm not demonizing myself for having these feelings in the first place. But I am reparenting it, and that is what emotional maturity looks like, creating safety for the parts of us that never had it. And it was from that place of safety and that the compassion for others naturally follows. I'm more able to see my father's humanity, the ways he was also doing his best with what he knew. And I could see my partner's effort not as a rejection of me, but as his own form of devotion. But that clarity only came after I tended to me. And then there's, of course, like the integration, how I worked it through. Once I was able to understand the root, I was able to journal. I, of course, did some breath work, some soft, slow exhales to signal safety in my body. And it was from that place that I was able to really feel grounded and clear and confident and resourced to share what I had discovered with my partner, not from blame, but from truth. And I did it even though like I literally was shaking, because like being vulnerable and talking about things that have hurt me in the past are always very uncomfortable for me to communicate. But when we can articulate the root, the conversation changes. Because it's not, you're not showing up for me, it's when I see you focused elsewhere, something old gets activated in me. And I'm working through it, but I also need a bit more closeness right now. That is what emotional repair sounds like. That is the bridge between awareness and change. Now, of course, I used a very specific framework, one that I've used in the past for other beliefs and old wounds that I needed to tend to. And so if you're listening to this and you want to explore this kind of process yourself, this is what I did to walk myself through it. So the first thing I did was, of course, the trigger identification, asking like what happened that made me reactive or sad. The second thing I do is look at the emotional impact. How did it land in my body? Tight chest, anxiety, sadness, tears, like pit in my stomach, overwhelming, hot, like what was that? The third thing is look at the underlying belief and root. What old story does this connect to? Like that was my aha moment. Like, oh my God, like of course I've been reacting like this because this ties to X, Y, Z. And the fourth thing was looking at validating myself and reframing it. No, I feel this way. The truth is, I am worthy of love and attention. And it's okay to need effort and reciprocity. And then the fifth thing was looking at actionable steps. What was one thing that I could do to feel held or empowered today? Not what can somebody else do for me? What can I do for myself today? And that was the framework. And what I keep learning over and over and over in this journey is that self-leadership isn't about control or perfection. Sometimes it's just about courage. The courage to face yourself honestly, to feel what's real, what's going on, and to stay present long enough to find the truth underneath the trigger. And the more that I do that, the more space I create for intimacy and understanding and certainly peace. Now, this is not that the old wounds disappear, but that I trust myself now to meet them when they surface. And that changes everything. So if you've been noticing your own cracks showing lately, if you've been more reactive or more emotional, more tired than usual, I want to remind you there's nothing wrong with you. It just means that there's something inside you that wants to be witnessed. And the most loving thing that you can do is to slow down and listen. One breath at a time. If this episode has resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you because I want to know. Like, certainly I'm not alone here. But tell me, like, what's one pattern you're learning to sit with instead of running from? Because self-leadership isn't a solo journey. It's a practice of coming home to yourself again and again. So, in the meantime, breathe it in, be deliberate, and please be good to yourself.